What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of GigaChad Books. I'm your host, GigaChad Books. It's been quite some time indeed. I've taken a step away from my YouTubing career. So I think it's been like 4 months. I think it was like January. But I've been reading plenty. I just haven't wanted to make any videos. I've wanted to, but like the necessity to has just not been there. And I've been reading some fantastic books. I'm not going to talk about all of them because there would be too much to talk about, but in recent memory, I have read two fantastic things. I read Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami, which I already have like 3 Haruki Murakami reviews on my channel. I also read the Wind Up Bird Chronicle earlier this year. That was a huge book. It was pretty good. I didn't love it as much as I kind of fell off for me a little bit, but it was really good, really interesting. I think Kafka on the Shore is like my new favorite Haruki Murakami. I really found it to be super just invigorating, and like I just always wanted to read it. I think it's so interesting because it switches between different perspectives. There's 2 different stories that are being told here that are like somehow interlinked, and how they're interlinked, I don't even really know, honestly, but super interesting nonetheless. The plot is like there's Kafka Tamura, I think. He's a runaway. He's a boy. He's 15 years old. He has to be the toughest 15-year-old around. He has to be strong. He ends up going to a library, and he ends up basically living there after having run away from home. And then he's trying to find his mother, trying to find his sister. And there's a bunch of weird shit that happens with all of that. It's extremely sexual, incestual type stuff. You know, pretty weird. That was pretty uncomfortable to read, but getting outside of that, I think that this book is absolutely phenomenal. There's just so much to be gathered here in terms of the themes. I think that there's so many interesting concepts here that are delved into, and I really just found a lot of enjoyment in following these situations. And the other side of the story, you follow Nakata, who is this guy who can talk to cats, and he has these weird abilities that kind of come to fruition as the story progresses. And he doesn't know what's going on. This dude barely has the capacity to think and remember. He can't read or write or anything like that. Here comes my dog to say hello. I'm recording a video, so you need to get out the way. Go do something else. But Nakata's really interesting, and he brings along another character in Hoshino. And Hoshino is really cool. I really liked his development and how he kind of really warms up to Nakata, finds a lot of endearment in him and a lot of charm as well, and kind of brings him around to a place in life that he otherwise would not have found himself in. So I really liked Hoshino. He was super cool. They have a run-in with Colonel Sanders, the KFC guy, as one does in Japan when traversing the streets late at night. Super interesting stuff. But I think this book is phenomenal, and it's like 450 pages. Get out of the way, I'm talking about books. 450 pages of book. And typically, whenever I'm tasked with handling a 450-page book, I'm a little bit averse to it. I'm like, oh man, I don't know about that. I'm a little bit hesitant. Even though this book is big by my definition of big, it really doesn't feel like it's big enough, because there is, like, it feels like there's so much packed in here, like so tightly. Like, it's such a thematically dense book. There's so much going on that it feels like 450 pages isn't even enough to really get across everything that there could be. But there's no waste of space in this book whatsoever, I would say. And I absolutely loved it, and I don't think that this should be the first Haruki Murakami that you read. If you are interested in reading Haruki Murakami, I think that you should check out something else that isn't so weird and off-putting. just so that you can kind of get a feel for what he's like. So then when you get into this, you aren't so blown away by how unapologetically he approaches topics like these. But I think it's a fantastic book. I think it's totally something that's worth reading. I think it's my favorite Haruki Murakami that I've read so far, and I definitely plan on reading more. So I would definitely give it a go. And then the second book that we're going to talk about real quick, we're going to talk about Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. My cousin told me to read this, and I've obviously heard of this book before. I feel like it's kind of it's somewhat of a well-known book, I would say. We actually read a segment of it in middle school, I think. I remember reading an early part of this book just to kind of get a feel for what it was. And it turned out to not be anything like how I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be a kid's book, honestly. Like, I thought it was going to be somewhat lighthearted while also, kind of taking on a thoughtful tone to it. But this book is very dark, very, very, very traumatic. It's all about just a man's exploration of his own trauma that he had no way of being able to uncover beforehand, because the main character's name is Charlie, and he's a very non-intelligent being. He is mentally handicapped, has a very low IQ. Basically, there's like a treatment that can be done, which they did on animal specimens beforehand. They did it on mice, and that's who Algernon is. Algernon is a little white mouse with candy eyes, and he was given this treatment that enhances intelligence. So Algernon becomes a very smart mouse, and after the tests appear to have gone pretty well, they're like, okay, well, let's give this test to a human who is remarkably dumb. And that can only end up poorly, I think that that's pretty clear. And so they give it to this man, Charlie, and Charlie has to write down little diary entries, little reports as to what's going on. And you see a very rapid increase in his intelligence. It's pretty interesting to see that actually unfold within the writing. Like, you can see like the pieces begin to fit together. That's pretty cool to just see how freaking smart this dude becomes just through these journal entries. Rapidly acquires knowledge. He becomes much smarter, and he becomes much more aware of the world around him. And that brings around a lot of hardship, because a lot of these things that he didn't understand before, now they're very clear to him, and he sees like how wrong his perception was of the people around him and of his treatment. He understands how horrible it is now, and he's able to think for himself and think back to moments that he didn't have the ability to understand before. And it's really hard for him, and that's where a lot of this where a lot of the substance of this book takes place, is his uncovering of the truth and his attempt to cope with whatever has happened to him. So it's a lot of trauma evaluation, a lot of psychology. And yeah, there's some pretty awful stuff in this book. Some pretty awful stuff. But at some point in like the middle of the book, I feel like it kind of gets a bit much, to a point where you don't really feel it as much as you should, at least in my opinion. It felt like I was having this idea just drilled into my head over and over and over again, and like initially I was like, oh man, this freaking sucks, I get it. But then it's like, after having heard about it for like the 20th time, just another memory dealing with the same sort of idea, I was just like, man, I get it. And it didn't have as profound of an effect on me as it did when it was first beginning to, when it was first kind of incorporated. So that's a bit unfortunate. There is a bit of a stumble in the middle of the book where it just kind of feels a bit redundant. But then in the last 100 pages or so, I think that it kind of finds its speed again and unravels at a good pace. Has a very good conclusion, very emotionally profound effect. It had on me. The last 2 pages were absolutely like kind of wrecked me a bit. was very good. It was very good. I do think that this is a great book to read. I'm not going to say that it's one of my favorite books that I've read, but it is definitely a valuable read that, you know, ask a lot of interesting questions in terms of like intelligence and emotional intelligence and how we deal with trauma. How desirable is the pursuit for knowledge truly? You know, is that something that you really want? Do you really want to know everything? Or is it best to let some things lie as they are? If that's not your purpose to be that way, should you strive for that? Should you try to alter yourself in a way that might be unnatural and might provoke some detrimental responses from you? I don't know. It's pretty interesting. I do think it's a cool book, and I like the concept here. I thought it was great, and yeah, I would definitely suggest giving it a read. I think it's a necessary book to read at some point. Yeah, that's what I got for you guys. We're just talking about those two books, Flowers for Algernon and Kafka on the Shore, both pretty freaking good books. Today I have been reading some Kafka, actually. I've been reading some of his short stories. It's been super fun to read so far. It's been super interesting, super weird. It doesn't make any sense, but that is obviously the purpose of it. But I think it's great. So I've been doing that on this very overcast Sunday day, and it's been really quite wonderful. I've been doing a lot of great things recently, a lot of fun times, a lot of fun experiences. Life has been very full and very fruitful for me, and it's been really awesome. So hopefully I'll make another video again soon, because I have been reading, just haven't been talking about what I've been reading. But thanks for watching if you did watch. And also shout out to my boy Raindrop the Pilgrim. That's my friend. I don't really watch his videos because I'm not a very good friend, but y'all should go subscribe to him nonetheless, because he's a great guy and he's always got some interesting things to say. But yeah, that's what I got. So I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.